The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon. I'm Deborah Cartisser from 12 Points Wealth Management, and we wanted to thank you all for joining us here today. I'm joined by Jennifer Taboda from BlackRock, and Jennifer is a member of BlackRock's Advisor Insight team and has been in the financial services industry for over 15 years. She has deep experience creating and presenting educational programs on financial planning topics focused on inspiring and motivating audiences to change their behaviors. Currently, she leads the Social Security Counseling team and serves as a national specialist on topics including Social Security, behavioral finance, women and investing, changing client demographics, and financial literacy. Jen's an active member of BlackRock's Women's Initiative Network and believes that engaging and fostering the full potential of women is key to financial planning success. So, Jennifer, take it away. We're happy to have you joining us here today.
Excellent. Thank you, Deborah. Thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you for having me here this afternoon, and for all of you to take the time out of your day to be on this webinar. Honestly, this happens to be one of the topics that I hold dear and true to my heart. Being a woman in the financial industry, if any of you might know, in finance, is a pretty dominant man's world, right? And I've been in the industry for over 16 years, and I could tell you that, my experience, women are far and few between. Matter of fact, out of our sales force, we have about 500 and we have about 50 women out of that sales force. So just to kind of give you an idea, so I have made it my goal, my career here at BlackRock, to help individuals like yourselves understand the real importance of taking control of your financial foundation. Because as women, we really are unique, right, when it comes to our finances and our retirement. And, at BlackRock, our purpose here is to help more and more people experience well-being through wealth. So, and unfortunately, money continues to be the #1 source of stress worldwide for men and women. Right? And this workshop really kind of aims to just give you the tools and the knowledge to feel empowered to take action. So we're just going to take some time today to help examine your relationship with money, think about your financial goals, and hopefully empower you to achieve wealth and well-being. So for about the next 50 minutes, I'm just going to be just going over some of the basics around where women are in the world today, because I always love to highlight the fact that we've come a really long way. Let's not forget that, right? Also, I'm going to be discussing as to what wealth really means to you. Now, there's no wrong and a right answer to this. It's specific to each and every one of you. And, just keep that in the back of your mind as we go through the presentation as to what that means to you. I'm going to kind of ask you to think about that in the next few minutes. We're also going to be discussing some of the basics around investing, specifically 3 areas in which individuals tend to make mistakes that hopefully once we identify them, you can avoid them in the future, as well as I'll give you some keys to financial success that I always love to share with all of you. And then I'm going to give you some actionable steps today to building your foundation for wealth, and then share a little bit of what makes us unique and some things you need to take in consideration in regards to your financial plan being a woman. All right, so with that, we'll jump right in. Women are wielding more and more assets and power in the world than ever today. And, if you think back to, for example, to the first 1924 Winter Olympics, we actually only had around 6 women participating. And out of all those those women, they all were actually figure skaters, right? So it's no shocker. And in the recent 2021 Winter Olympics, we actually had 49% of the participants were actually women. Also, you're seeing, more and more women starting businesses now more than ever. Actually, women are starting businesses at 2 times the rate of men. Not only are they starting those businesses, but they're succeeding more so as well. Also, you're seeing more and more women in Congress now more than ever. 27% of Congress is now made up of women. Let's not also forget that we have a woman in the White House. So regardless of your political beliefs, that's definitely a huge step in the right direction. As well as, women are graduating now more from college than ever. Actually, over 60% of recent degree earners happen to be women. Just think back 20, 30 years ago, you could probably count the amount of women in each room within the universities. And now we're graduating more than our male counterparts. Obviously, with all of this power that women are gaining in leadership, you're seeing women grow more of their assets. Matter of fact, women are on board of controlling more of the wealth than ever before. There are breadwinners and they're the co-breadwinners in a majority of their homes. Right, let's take a moment to reflect on that. I love this statistic, right? It happens to be I'm the breadwinner in my household. Actually, my spouse is a recent stay-at-home dad. We're trying it out, seeing how that works, being that I travel so much. But, think back just to 30 years ago. I mean, I'm in my 30s. I could tell you just growing up that my mom was probably one of the only women that I knew out of my friends that worked. Right? It was most of my friends' parents were stay-at-home moms, and yet now you look around and honestly, most women are either the breadwinners or the co-breadwinners in their households. So definitely a huge shift in what we have seen over the last few decades. Also, women are set to inherit a majority of $30 trillion in intergenerational wealth transfers. What does that really mean? That means at some point, you will likely be making the decisions in regards to your finances if you haven't done so already. And women are projected to control around 35% of the global personal investable wealth by 2025. So yes, women have come a really long way, but unfortunately, women still face a large amount of challenges. And one of them is, pretty evident. We all know that women unfortunately still under-earn men, right? Women earn around 82 cents per dollar that a man earns. Now, I don't know if any of you have ever seen the movie My Big Fat Greek Wedding. If you haven't, I urge you to watch it. It happens to be one of my favorite movies. I'm Cuban American. I was actually the first one born here in this country out of my entire family. And I really feel like I identify, with the main character. It's basically myself on screen. It just happens to be that she's Greek. Same exact thing if you're Cuban, by the way. And my favorite part of the movie is, obviously she really wants to go to college. She's really upset because her dad said, you don't need to go to college. You're already smart enough for a woman. So clearly she's crushed, right? She's talking to her mom. She's like, you know what, mom, he's never going to go for it because he's the head of the family and whatever he says goes. And her response was epic, right? She turns around, she goes, you know what, you're right. The man is the head of the family, but the woman is the neck, and she could turn that head any which way she wants. So the whole point being, my friends, is that, yes, unfortunately, women still under-earn men, but fun fact, women still make 3/4 of all the purchasing decisions within their household. Right? So you're still deciding as to where that money actually goes. Also, take into consideration that women spend on average around 12 years outside of the workforce, right? Actually, we saw over 2.3 million women leave the workforce in 2020. If I asked you why, you probably would all guess correctly, right? We had the pandemic. A lot of women had to decide, right, between their careers and staying home with their children who are likely not be, not in school, for whatever those reasons. And what happens is that you don't really realize that you really put yourself, you know, apart from your male counterparts in regards to reaching your goals. Right? Because if you're spending 12 plus years outside of the workforce to take care of family or loved ones, that's 12 years you're not saving. It's 12 years you're not investing. You're missing out on promotional opportunities, right? So again, you're already starting off with a pretty significant gap in relation to reaching those goals already. Also, women say 46% of women say money negatively impacts their mental health, compared to only around 38% of men, meaning, most women actually feel like finances are the number one stressor in their life compared to work, their health, their family, and social life, right? And here at BlackRock, we actually run an annual poll to kind of get an idea as to how you feel in regards to your finances. What are your fears? What are your anxieties, right? We want to know. We want to be able to help you meet those fears and anxieties. And, given certain financial realities, it's not surprising that our report shows that women have a very unique set of demands, right? Women, for example, want to feel secure financially, right? They want to be debt-free. They want to feel more confident about their money. Like I mentioned, happens to be one of the number one stressors in their life. And also, this is my favorite statistic, 61% of women would rather talk about their own deaths than money. Yep, you heard me correctly. Most of you would rather plan your own funerals than talk about your finances, right? Certainly don't want any of you to ever feel like that. So this is why we're here today, to hopefully make you feel a little bit more comfortable about the topic. as well as women want to be more knowledgeable about investments. Well, the fact that you're on here today and you came to this workshop, honestly, you've already made one step in the right direction. So pat yourselves on the back, right, in reaching that particular goal. And then also women want to fulfill their personal goals. Right now, there's still a challenge to face, as you've seen, we've just mentioned the last few minutes, but the good news is that you don't need to be in finance to understand and invest your wealth with confidence, right? Through the knowledge and guiding hand of your advisors here at 12 Point Wealth Management, they can help you get invested to achieve your goals. Now, remember I asked you earlier to kind of get an idea as to what wealth means to you. The reason I ask this is because this is the basis of what you're going to need to answer for yourself before you ever talk to a financial advisor, right? This is a very important question, because once you get an understanding of what wealth means to you, that's when you really can have that conversation with your financial advisors here so that you can invest and achieve those particular goals. So you got to figure that out for yourself, right? Now, remember, there's no wrong and or right answer to this. It's dependent on you. Now, I'll give you an example, right? If you're wondering what that kind of looks like, when we asked this question to my mom, we sat down with her financial advisor and he asked her, what does wealth mean to you? Now, my mom is a doctor. She's been in the medical field her most of her life. She's done very well for herself. So, of course, her answer wasn't surprising to me, right? She's like, well, wealth really means to me is the financial independence, the financial freedom, meaning she doesn't want to live paycheck to paycheck. She doesn't have to worry about her finances in retirement. She wants to be able to travel more, spend more, do more. That's what wealth means to her, right? Not having to worry about her finances. So again, that could be different for all of you. It can mean as little as you just want to make sure you have enough saved for retirement, or that you have enough left over to put your kids through college, or you want, you be able to travel more or pursue some of your creative interests. Or maybe you just want to have enough left over to make sure that you're donating to those causes that mean the most to you, right? This is where we can use our time together today to start to think about your goals so that you can work with your financial advisors here at 12 Point to create a unique financial plan for you. So what are the next steps now? When you're sitting down with your financial advisor, right, well, some of the questions they're going to start asking you are things like some of the goals that you want to reach, right? Now, let's talk about how your goals really kind of relate to your money. So when it comes to goal setting, right, it's important to visualize what your goals look and feel like. And the important part is, obviously, you want to set SMART goals. Now, clearly you want them to be smart, but what we really mean by this is you want them to be specific, right? You want them to be measurable. You want them to be achievable. Clearly you want them to be relevant, and you want them to have some type of time frame behind it, right? Because if you're not putting a time frame behind those goals, you're really just setting up a wish list, right? You're not necessarily setting up a goal. So, right, putting up your goal next to that time frame, and then now talking to your financial advisor about investing so that you can achieve those goals. Because the reality is that you will have to take on some level of risk in order to achieve them. Now, I did promise before that I was going to give you guys some keys to financial success. And I want to first start off, before I go into some of the basics around investing, my number one key to financial success, right? And this is something that honestly, every single time that I sit down with my friends and family members over dinner, and I'm sure everybody in the financial industry can kind of agree, right? You sit down, and of course, being in finance, what's the first question they ask you, right? I'm sure you all probably are wondering, yeah, they ask you what they should be invested in, right? What's the next big stock story? What should they be doing? And it's the same question every single time. Yet my answer to them is always the same, right? Again, number one key to financial success is do yourselves a favor and don't let the noise distract you from reaching your goals. What do I mean by that? Oftentimes, you are your own worst enemy when it comes to reaching those goals. Honestly, your advisors here at WealthPoint can build you the best portfolios out there, and they can and will fail if you continue to make changes to that portfolio, right? Because what happens is that we let the outside noise distract us, the news, right? So do yourselves a favor, turn off CNN, turn off CNBC, rely on those experts that do this most, like your financial advisors here, to help and guide you through some of those emotional times. Because the problem is that when you're listening to the news is meant to build fear and anxiety, right? And what happens is then you're making decisions you wouldn't have normally made should you have been not listening to those outside resources, right? So number one key to financial success, turn off the news, turn off your Apple phones, right? Your notifications that you have on there, and really just rely on those that do this best. Now, the next conversation you have when it comes to, building your portfolio, or before you even build your portfolio, is really just the type of, level of risk that you're willing to take within your portfolio. Now, of course, if I ask you, hey, what is risk? Most of you would probably answer correctly, right? It's the possibility of, or the chance of you losing your money, right? Now, at the same time, investments make money because you take on a certain amount of risk, right? And you'll need to work with your advisor to find the right level of risk for your investments, which balances your risk tolerance with the risk required to meet your goals. But honestly, the most important thing to remember here is that risk is completely relative. What is risky to you might not be risky to the person next to you, right? So it's all dependent on what's comfortable for you. Right now, I have a 5-year-old. Remember, I just said that I'm the major breadwinner in my household. And I could tell you that before having my daughter, I would absolutely jump out of a plane, skydiving, and the possible risk of, plummeting my death, all for a few minutes of fun. Absolutely would have done it. Now I'm like, maybe that's a little risky, right? Because now it's kind of all relying on me. So that seems like a lot more risky to me currently. And that's kind of how your portfolio is going to be built, right? Because your portfolio is really a combination of stocks, bonds, and cash, right? And your portfolio is going to be either, built to be more on the conservative side or more on the aggressive side, or somewhere in the middle, depending on that risk tolerance that you're willing to take. But not only is your portfolio going to be built on your risk tolerance, but also where you are in your financial journey, right? Because like I mentioned, I have a 5-year-old right now. I've been investing in her 529 plan for college savings since literally before I knew she was, when I found out I was pregnant, I started investing in her 529 because let's be honest, she's going to college. She has no choice, right? Now, I have her in the most aggressive portfolio I can find. Why? Because she has like 15 plus years left before she has to use that money for college. So she has 15 plus years to make up for any market downturns that we might see. While my mom, on the other hand, she's nearing retirement. Although she's actually a pretty aggressive investor typically, she's in a much more conservative portfolio currently because she's in preservation mode, right? She wants to keep all that she's worked so hard for. So again, this is where you're going to work with your advisor to help build that portfolio, not only on the level of risk you're willing to take, but again, where you are in that financial journey. Now, being in the financial industry, right, one of the top questions I always get from individuals like yourselves is like what you should be invested in, right? I mentioned that before, and I'm not going to discuss, certain investments because honestly, there are a million different types. It's dependent on all your risk tolerance, what you're looking to achieve, goals, etc. But the number one tip that I can give you is that, when it comes to women investors agree or strongly agree that they would rather invest in companies that have a positive social or environmental impact compared to only around 40% of men. So what does that really mean? Women want to do good while also doing well, right? So you want to do good for the world and invest in companies that you feel, confident about. Then just make sure that you're talking to your financial advisor so they can include that within your overall financial plan. But the biggest tip that I can give to you, and I say this only because I don't know how many times I've sat down, for example, with my parents and with their financial advisor, they hang up with him and then they immediately call me. Why do they call me? Because they're like, hey, Jen, can you please explain to me whatever it is that he just said, right? You never want to leave your, meeting with your advisors here with that feeling like you're not understanding what it is that you're invested in. Remember, I told you that most of your decisions are based on that fear and that anxiety. Not understanding what you're invested in will build that fear and anxiety. And again, making decisions you wouldn't have normally made. Ask questions. If you don't know what you're invested in, make sure you understand it. You shouldn't be invested in anything that you don't understand anyways, right? So your advisors here at 12 Point will absolutely be more than happy to walk you through it and explain to you what those investments entail. All right. So again, biggest tip I can give you is don't ever feel like you can't ask that question. That's what we're here for. Okay. Okay. So I Promise I'd go over 3 areas in which individuals tend to make mistakes that once you identify them, we hopefully avoid them in the future. Number one mistake that I see often investors make, whether you're male or female, honestly, is those who like to just sit on the sidelines. We call them sideline sitters, right? You say, you know what? Not really wanting to invest right now. It's a volatile market. You know, there's something might be going on. I'm going to go ahead, take my money out, and I'm going to stick it in cash. The problem with this is that you're not making any money by sitting on the sidelines, right? If anything, you're losing money just due to the rate of inflation, right? Purchasing power alone decreases over time by sitting in cash. So if you have a $100,000 investment, you know, you've been investing the last 20 years, you did nothing but sit in cash, then unfortunately your investment's only worth around $61,000 today. So if you're not invested, you're at least losing due to inflation. Also, you know, second mistake individuals tend to make, and this is one of the larger ones, right, is looking for that perfect opportunity to invest. I can't tell you how many times I had friends and family come up to me during the pandemic. They're like, Jen, you would be so proud. I took all of my money out. I'm going to sit in cash. I'm going to invest, but I'm just going to wait until COVID's over, right? And that way, you know, I have a better chance of being in a better market. And of course, I'm like looking at them going, oh no, we don't want that to happen, because guess what? Is COVID over? Nope, right? And now you're going 3, 4+ years without investing, waiting for this to go away. There is no perfect opportunity to invest. You never know when those perfect times are. So staying invested is typically the best course of action. And this is a great example of just exactly what I mean. If you're looking here on the slide, you have a $100,000 investment, 10%, you know, return. Over the past decade, if you'd stayed invested the entire time, your investment would have been worth nearly $260,000. Let's say now you took that same investment, that same exact return, but now over only a 5-year time frame, your investment's only worth around $161,000. So the difference between investing for 10 years versus 5 years isn't just 100% more. It's over 260% more, right? Almost 3 times as much, right? So if you're investing for the long term, again, you don't want to invest or wait to invest at the right moment. You lose 2 ways when you wait, right? Through the erosion of your purchasing power from inflation, like we spoke about, and missing out on that compounding interest. My next key to financial success, okay, is make compounding interest your best friend, okay? It's no surprise why Albert Einstein said it was like the 8th wonder of the world, right? The longer you're in the market, the more time you have your investment to build on itself, right? So you want to make that your friend and stay invested so that it compounds, right, over time. Last but not least is the biggest mistake, you know, that we see individuals make when it comes to their finances. And those are those who are trying to time the market. What do I mean by that? Right? When individuals are trying to time the market, what they mean is they only want to be invested in the market when it's doing well, and they don't want to be invested when it's doing poorly. Clearly, we all want that, right? But again, it's very difficult to find out when those best performing days will be. Even, you know, the experts on Wall Street can't get this correct, right? So for example, if you had a $100,000 investment in the S&P 500 the past 20 years, you stayed invested the entire time, again, your portfolio would have been worth nearly $650,000. Let's say now that you've missed 15 of the best days in the market, your investment's only worth around $225,000. Let's say now you've missed 25 of the best days in the market. Now your portfolio is only worth 143,000. The reality to consider is that typically 24 or the 25 of the worst days in the market come within 1 month directly after of 25 or 24, 25 of the best days in the market, right? So any overreaction to any one bad day can have you really missing out. Right? So this isn't 25 of the missed days over the past year. This is like, let's say 25 of the missed days over the past 20, right? So very difficult time. So try not to time the market, right? Remember, staying invested is typically the best strategy if you haven't gotten the theme already, right? Don't let worry drive your investment decisions, right? Oftentimes, again, that staying invested is that strategy. All right, so I'm sure many of you have always heard that saying of you never put all your eggs in one basket, that you should always be in a diversified portfolio. So guess what? I'm not going to discuss that today because you all know that. You all know you shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket. You should all be in a diversified portfolio. But what I really want to focus on today is the fact that nobody talks to you about the fact that a diversified portfolio is actually really hard to be in. And the reason is that you succumb to what we like to call S&P envy, right? You're kind of always envious of what that S&P is doing, right? You're looking at your portfolio and you're wondering, well, how am I doing in comparison? And then you succumb to FOMO, right? That fear of missing out. And you're thinking of the what ifs. And then again, that can lead you to making bad investment decisions. Being in a diversified portfolio is important, but understanding why you're in a diversified portfolio is just as important, right? Because a diversified portfolio is built to limit your losses, right? The next key to financial planning success, limiting your losses. The less you lose, the less you have to make up to actually break even. So let me show you exactly what I mean by that, right? Here you have an example of 2000 to 2002, right? Diversified portfolio was down 15%, S&P 500 was down 40%. So let's say that was your portfolio. Now you're down 15%. What are you going to do? You're going to call your advisors here at 12 Point Wealth Management, right? And you're going to say, hey, what's going on? And they're going to respond going, what are you talking about? You're doing great. You're only down 15%. The market's down 40, right? And you're going to be like, wait a minute. I didn't know this is the way this conversation was going to go, right? I'm losing money. That's never a good thing, right? Let's jump to 2009 to 2019, the best example of S&P envy. Now, let's say your diversified portfolio is up 219%, but the S&P is up 351%. So what do you do now? Right? You do the same thing you did before. You call your financial advisors here and you go, what's going on? And they're going to say, what are you talking about? You're doing great. You're up 219%. And your response, of course, is going to be, well, I'm not nearly up as much. The market's up 350%. Now you're not making nearly, right? So the whole point being is that clients or investors call their financial advisors for one of two reasons, right? You're either losing money or you're not making nearly as much. Sadly, you're not calling us to pat us on the back to say, hey, you're doing a great job. Although I do urge all of you to do that. It's always nice, right? But the truth is that's when you call your advisors. You can avoid this phone call. You can avoid this fear and this anxiety by realizing that, again, you're in the diversified portfolio because it's meant to limit your losses. Therefore, you lose a little bit on the upside to protect you more on the downside. So again, punchline is that if you add up all of these periods, the diversified portfolio actually works even when it feels like you're losing. Remember, this is a marathon, not a sprint. This kind of regret and not understanding why we build portfolios the way we do can, again, lead to those bad investment decisions. Okay, so now we're in the part of the workshop where we're going to discuss a little bit about some of the key actions you can take back today to building your foundation for wealth. So honestly, if you do nothing else today, do yourself at least this one step. Okay, this is probably one of the most important steps to gaining your financial independence, and that is literally to just get organized. I know this seems like common sense, but it's not necessarily common practice, right? It's just getting all of your documents in one location, your bank accounts, insurance policies, wills, investment statements, estate and trust documents, right? And the reason that I say this is that typically in a household, you have one individual makes the financial decisions, right? It's not typically both, right? Like in my household, like I mentioned, I'm the one who makes all the financial decisions. The truth is, my husband literally has no idea how to pay the mortgage. No idea. He has no idea how much it is. He doesn't know what company holds it. He wouldn't know how to pay it should he need to, right? He doesn't know that I have $1 million insurance policy on him, right? Doesn't need to know that. I keep that one in my back pocket. But the whole point being is that he knows where to obtain this information. I gathered it all together. I handed it to our lawyer. That's just what I was most comfortable with. And I said, if anything ever should happen to me, please reach out to our lawyer. He's going to have the documents, which then you can work with our financial advisor to get him, set up as to what the next steps are. The problem with this is that we see so many women today And unfortunately, if you're not making those financial decisions, you don't know where this information lies. And remember, women typically outlive men by up to 12 years. So at some point, if you're not making that financial decision right now, you're likely to be making it at some point in your future. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten phone calls from women who lose their spouses, turn around and go, Jen, I haven't paid any of these bills ever in my lifetime. I don't even know where to start. It's already hard enough losing a spouse as it is right now, making it more difficult on you to have that fear and anxiety of what next steps are. Make sure, again, if you don't do this, it's fine. Just make sure you know where that information lies. If you are the one making those decisions like myself, make sure you're sharing that with your loved ones. The next step would be to just define your goals. So we talked about this already kind of a little bit. You're going to just put pen to paper, right? And actually start setting those goals as to what it is that you want to achieve. And you're going to look at it on a short-term, medium-term, and long-term basis, right? So short-term being under 3 years, medium 3 to 10 years, and 10 years plus on the long term. But you're going to have to then divide those goals into what it is that you need to achieve versus those things that you want to achieve, right? So and again, I had this exercise with my mom. It was actually quite comical because she, the first thing that she came up with is that she wants to live at the beach. Fun fact, we live at the Jersey Shore, right? We actually live 1 mile away from the water. So that means that my mom wants to live 1 mile closer, right, on the actual water. Now, if any of you ever know anything about the shore, the closer you get, right, the more expensive it gets. So I always joke around with her saying, yes, you may want to live at the beach, Mom, but you also need to do things like eat, which you might have to give up should you go 1 mile closer. But the whole point is just determining what those goals are and then classifying them so that your advisor can better understand how to invest in order to reach those goals. The next step would be to just actually know your numbers, right? This is another probably longer part of the exercise. It's going to take you some time, but I promise you, you're going to feel so much better after you do it. You should probably honestly be doing this on an annual basis, just to kind of get an understanding as to where your money is being spent, right? So know your assets, your liabilities, right? What's going in, what's going out, your expenses, and get an understanding what your net worth looks like, right? Because this is going to set the baseline for your financial advisors here so they can help identify possible areas where you can either spend less, save more, or reduce debt so that you could be in even better shape tomorrow. Like I mentioned, this is a great exercise. I actually do this every single year. There are great calculators, in all honesty, that help you do this very seamlessly, very easily by creating and sticking to a budget. There are apps like that can help you, like mint.com, Good Budget, Acorns, Pocket Guard, dailybudget.com, all, great apps that can help you achieve, getting all this information. But like I said, I do this annually, and I realized, at least for last year, that I spent most of my income went to Amazon, which in all fairness, we were in a pandemic and I was ordering everything online. But I definitely realized I need to take my finger off of that one-click button that they make so very simple to use. But again, very good exercise, as well as very imperative for your financial advisor to get that baseline. And the last and final step is honestly to just get invested to meet your goals, right, in that portfolio. Know yourself, your goals, your needs. Ask for help. I can't tell you how many times I get asked this question saying, John, you don't have a financial advisor. You probably do this all on your own, right? You travel over the country talking and giving advice to clients all day on helping them retire. So you must not, rely on anybody else. Honestly, the truth is, those who can't do teach, my friends. I'm a terrible client. I know that. I know I have just as hard time reaching those particular, sticking to those particular goals. I'm human just like you. And that's why working with a financial advisor is not only, good, but it's also so important because they're not just there to be money managers. I know that's often the misconception, right? When you ask anybody, like, oh yeah, financial advisors are money managers. They manage your money, make sure that you try to make as much as possible to reach your goals. Yes, that is a small part of their job, small being key word. The bigger part of their job is helping you reach your goals and sticking to them, setting expectations and helping you manage that fear and that anxiety, right? So think about it kind of like a personal trainer, right? They help you stay on track. They hold yourself accountable, right? So reach out to one if you haven't done so already. there's never a perfect age for it. The perfect age is now, right? So stay engaged, stay invested, right? Create a financial strategy and stick with it no matter what's going on in the market. If you didn't get the theme already, right? Again, given time is that smartest strategy. Remember, as women, we tend not to make very much time for ourselves. Remember, you can make the time. It's your money. You want to live the way you want to live, and therefore you want to make yourself a priority. Now, last but not least, I really just want to spend the next few minutes kind of just discussing as to some of the reasons why women are different, right? Remember, I told you that we are unique. And the reason we're unique is that, remember, we live on average 10 to 15 years more than our male counterparts. That means that longevity is literally a women's problem, right? Because you have to fund that longevity, sometimes up to 100+ years into your retirement. So you want to make the best decision possible, and you want to focus on those areas where you're likely to spend more money than your male counterparts. So one area you need to take in consideration a little bit more than your male counterparts are things like parenting and caregiving, right? At some point, again, most of you will spend 12 years on average taking care of family and or loved ones, as well as more than likely women are more likely to have to end up in a nursing home facility or some type of facility like that. Reason being is that most of the time women stay at home with their spouses until they pass away, and guess up who ends up in those nursing facilities, right? I don't know if any of you have ever been to a nursing facility, but if you walk in, number one gender, female, right? Because that's what ends up, needing that help later on. And unfortunately, it could be really expensive. It could be on average $54,000 a year for assisted living, over $100,000 a year for private room and nursing home care. Whole point being, is your financial plan prepared to take on that drain? Or do you need to discuss with your advisors here at 12 Points on maybe adding things like long-term care insurance to help you absorb some of these additional costs? Another area you're going to spend more money on as women is the likelihood you're going to spend a lot more on healthcare, right? You live longer, and therefore you're going to spend more on your healthcare. On average, Americans spend around $13,000 a year on healthcare. On an average couple spends around $600,000 throughout their lifetime to cover healthcare expenses. And due to longer lifespans, the amount of women a woman would need is likely more than half of that amount. They typically spend around 30+ percent more than their male counterparts when it comes to their health care expenses. So again, this should be considered in your financial strategy. Now, if you're panicking at this point, don't worry, right? This is kind of where I even remember my mom, when I first talked to her about this, she kind of looked at me, she goes, Jen, you're not making me feel any better. If anything, you're telling me I need to spend, to save more. I need to be more prepared in all these areas where you're not making me feel any better. But the truth is that don't worry, because there are ways to maximize what you already have. And one of those areas is Social Security. Right now, you're probably wondering all to yourself, wait a minute, how hard can that be? Social Security is just about filing for benefits at a certain, at the age that you need it, and that's it. Honestly, there are so many ways to maximize your benefits to get the most out of a system that, frankly, you've been paying into your entire lives that you know very little about. Now, I could talk about Social Security for hours. We have an entire presentation just on this, so I'm not going to go into it in detail. Honestly, the important thing to remember with Social Security is that you have a lot of choices. You can collect benefits in many different ways. You can collect them on your own through your spouse as a widow or widower, even as an ex-spouse, right? A lot of times individuals leave money on the tables because they are not aware that you can collect benefits off of your spouse while they're alive, collect 100% when they pass away, and if you're divorced, you can collect again 50% while they're alive, 100% should they pass away, as long as you meet certain qualifications. This is where so many leave money on the table, is not taking advantage of those benefits you've been paying into your entire life. Fun fact, Social Security is not in the business of knocking on your door and saying, hey, you forgot to file, right? Or you could be filing for benefits off of your ex, or for your disabled child, or for your children, right? There's, again, so many ways to file, so many benefits. You want to make sure that you're getting what was owed to you. Make sure you're reaching out to your advisors here at 12 Point. They actually run personalized analysis for your particular situation. So please reach out if you haven't done so already, so that they can run one on your particular situation and help you file accordingly to get the most you possibly can. Which leads us now to Medicare. I'm not going to discuss this in too much detail simply because when it comes to Medicare, if many of you, are aware, Medicare is really your health insurance. It's going to cover your health expenses or some of your health expenses when you turn 65 and older. So basically through your retirement years. When it comes to Medicare, this is where, unfortunately, again, you could be spending a lot more than you should be, simply because you didn't make the appropriate choices within the right plans in your area. It's made up of a lot of parts. It could be pretty extremely complicated, but the most important thing is determining the right type of Medicare that is going to work best for you and signing up when it is that you are eligible, right? Because unfortunately, Medicare does charge you a 10% penalty for every year you didn't collect that you weren't on it, right? That you were supposed to. So let's say you waited 5 years to sign up for Medicare that you were supposed to be on it the whole time. That's a 50% surcharge added on to your monthly premiums for the rest of your life, right? You don't want that to happen, right? So I assure you those penalties never pay off. You end up paying them the rest of your life. So you want to make sure that you're avoiding that. Again, your advisors here actually have the tools to be able to just take some information and work with you and determine, which best plan is going to meet your needs at the right price points within your area. So you don't have to do it alone, right? They have the resources to help you do so. So again, make sure that you're reaching out so they can help you in regards to Social Security and your Medicare choices. As well as keep in mind that, remember I told you financial advisors are not just there as your money managers. They're there to help you during sometimes some of the major changes within your life. So unfortunately, statistically, women are have a much higher likelihood of at some point being divorced and or widowed at some point in their life. Now, obviously, no one plans to die, after their spouse or go into marriage planning on divorce. However, statistics tell us that the odds are very high, right, for women on both. So you want to focus on how you can set yourselves up to navigate the situation as best as you can when it comes to, let's say, divorce or losing a loved one. There are ways to kind of pre-plan for this, right? If you're maybe thinking of divorce, again, one of your first calls should be your financial advisor to kind of figure out where you stand and make sure that you're keeping as much as what you should be. Also, when it comes to widowhood, right, sometimes you can pre-plan for this as well so that you can set yourselves best, to move forward once that spouse does pass on. Again, the key important thing to remember here is that your financial advisors are there to help you with these huge life changes. Last but not least is just setting up an estate plan. I'm sure you've heard of this, estate planning, right? And you're probably wondering, it's just like my parents are like, we don't even know what that even means. Honestly, estate planning is just a really fancy way of making sure that everything you've ever worked for goes to where it's supposed to when it is that you've passed away, right? So estate planning is always best and at any time, right? I always get that question where they're like, when should I estate plan? You should have estate planned yesterday, right? Because you never know when it is that you're going to pass away. So you should always have a plan in place in order to determine what the next steps would be should you no longer be with us. And the best way to start doing that is not only talk to your advisors here about setting up that estate plan, but really just setting up the first steps, which is really just looking at setting up a power of attorney. A medical power of attorney, which, by the way, they're completely different. One handles your finances, the other one handles what it was or that you would want in regards to your health, should anything occur, wills, deeds, etc. I can't tell you how often I see individuals do this so much later in life. Remember, you don't know when anything will occur. Matter of fact, I remember being 9 months pregnant, like a crazy hormonal woman, right, sitting at my lawyer's office, asking him to put all these documents together, because of course I waited till the last second, and I'm here, having that fear that, God forbid, I passed away while giving birth, and now I've left my, daughter and husband to fend for themselves with no direction. So of course I had all these documents made up, before my daughter was born. But again, it's always great to have them just so that you have a plan in place. Again, it's one of those things that you don't realize you need until you need it, right? I saw this with my dad. I broke, my heart broke for him, right? Because my grandfather didn't have any of these documents when he became very ill, and he didn't have a medical power of attorney. He ended up in hospice. My dad had to make decisions on his life that he still haunts him till this day, because my grandfather didn't set expectations as to what it is that he wanted. So you want to make sure that you're doing this not only for yourself, but for your loved ones. So they're not making decisions for you, for your best interest based on, you know, their knowledge, and that might not be what it is that you want to achieve or your goal in that particular situation. So again, really important to get those documents in place. You could work with your advisors as well as your attorneys, CPAs, etc., to get those documents. So I know I went over a lot of information in a short period of time. I promised to keep this at 50 minutes. I'm exactly that. But the whole point being is that the next steps really, again, should always be talking to your financial advisor, right? Also, making sure that you're assembling the best team of experts. Think of like your finances as like, you know, controlling your finances as setting up the best football team, right? You want the best coach, which is your financial advisor, but you also really want some great teammates, right? The teammates being your life coaches, accountants, attorneys, mediators, appraisers, etc. Right? All these individuals or professionals can work together within your life to make sure that, you know, they're all working and, you know, to meet your best interests in mind. Remember, you're the captain of your own team. It's your responsibility to secure those best players. So, you know, work with your financial advisor as well as make sure to get organized, right? Define those goals we mentioned, know those assets and liabilities, get invested sooner rather than later. And remember, you're planning for your unique life path. I can't say that enough. Everyone's path is different, right? Whatever your neighbor or your friends are doing doesn't necessarily mean it's something that you should be doing, right? Remember, your path is completely unique and different than anybody else's. You just want to make sure that you're working with your advisor to reach those goals that reflects that path. So with that, thank you all for your time. I hope that you at least took some key things back today that you can take action to building your financial wealth for the future. I hope you feel empowered on doing this on your own, and you see it's not as scary as it tends to look like. You know, please reach out if you know you need that assistance, that help, right? It's the first step that you could always take. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Deborah for any closing remarks or questions you might have.
That was terrific, Jen. Thank you so much. That was a really helpful overview, and I love the action items that you left people with. I wanted to point out on our website, which is 12pointswealth.com, we have a resources tab, and there's some great articles in there, and one in particular I want to send people to. On page 3, there's an article called Beyond Estate Planning, an annual financial checklist, and it'll really help guide people to the information that you talked about earlier, Jan, that people should be amassing and starting to think about and putting it in a place where if something were to happen to them, you know, their loved one can come in and help take over, and spouses should share this information together. So page 3 of our blog has a great article, Beyond Estate Planning. Check that out.
That's fantastic.
Couple of questions that came in. Someone said that they're young, 25 years old, and it's their first job out of school. And do we have recommendations on what they should be saving?
Yeah, you know what? That's always such a great question. I love this question just simply because there really is no, you know, exact answer to it. But I always suggest, listen, when you first start off, saving something is better than nothing at all. Sometimes even saving, you know, let's say $25 a month or $25 every other week, you know, is a step in the right direction. I always just say you just want to make sure that you're increasing that year over year. I always make it a goal, for example, for myself to increase it between 1% and 3% per year. You know, as you get older, hopefully you are earning more throughout your career and therefore increasing the amount that you can save. But I would say working with an advisor, remember there's no right age. the age, every age is the right age for working with your advisor. They can help you determine regarding your situation how much you can comfortably put away so that you can go ahead and save. But I think one of my biggest tips that I can give to you is that just maximize those resources that you have. So for example, if you have a 401k plan, that's probably while you're earning in your career, one of the places that you should be investing the most, right? Because they typically match what it is that you're investing. That's free money. So my suggestion is always try to max out those plans, right? Because that way you'll get the full match, that full free money that you're going to receive. And that's the best way to, maximize your savings. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that one thing I'd add to that is really when you do have those salary increases that you were talking about, Jen, is to think about how much you want to set aside for that from that raise, and then paying yourself first, making sure that you're direct debiting your checking account or something so that it's happening automatically. That can make it easier too. So those are things
Absolutely
to think about. And then your answer is a perfect segue into our next question, which was,
so good.
should I save in my 401k first or start my emergency fund?
So again, that's a great question, and something that I personally wouldn't say I give you an answer without looking at your financial situation. Again, it all depends, but of course, yes, you should be putting money in your 401k, but it's also just as important to make sure that you have that savings, just in case anything should occur. Typically, you should have at least 6 months of salary saved up should, let's say, you lose your job or something happen. Typically individuals feel a lot more comfortable in regards to saving once you have kind of that nest egg in place. So I wouldn't say that it's one or the other. I would say, again, working with a financial professional can kind of determine how you can go about and do that comfortably. But a lot of times individuals feel a lot more safe, or that limit that fear and anxiety by having that little bit of that nest egg before you go ahead and really start maximizing on in other areas.
Yeah, that's terrific. We are thinking along the same lines and just making sure that you don't leave the match money out there, that if you can, putting the most you can to get that match and that free money is really key in this too.
Yep.
So, and again, everybody is different. As much as we work for so many different types of people, everybody's plan and everybody's situation is really different. And I think the other thing that just to help people is with guidance, and I'm thinking along the lines of what are some of the mistakes people make, which is one of the questions. What are some of the mistakes that people make and how to avoid them? And I think losing sight of your goals. It's really easy when you're out with friends or thinking about a trip you want to plan, or whatever it is that comes in front of you, seeing that and reminding yourself, oh yeah, I'm going to do that sometime, but I'm going to let my goal come first, and I'm going to let the funding of this goal come first because it's most important to me. So I think keeping sight of those things and taking the time, as you said, to really hone in on that and list them out, and so you can focus on them, really helps people.
Absolutely.
Be successful.
Yeah, and actually I would love to add that, because honestly, I get this question so much as to, like, Jen, what do you think one of the biggest mistakes you see people make when it comes to saving, right? And that's just really not taking the time to realize how fast time goes by, right? You always talk to everybody, they're like, you know what, next year I'll save more, or the following year, or maybe 5 years from now when my child's, out of daycare, or you're not spending so much, I'm going to save more. And honestly, time goes by so quickly, you realize now all of a sudden you're nearing retirement and you don't have the amount saved you wanted to. So, try to always think in the now, right? And you realize that time goes by very, very quickly. So even saving even just a little bit is, again, better than nothing.
That's great. Well, the last comment was, thank you, Jen. That was jam-packed with info and incredibly resourceful. So thank you so much for joining us today. And I just want to direct our listeners to the 12 Points Wealth website. There's a lot of resources there, other webinars that we've done in the past, and there's just a treasure trove of information. So happy to have you come there and contact me at Deb at 12 Points Wealth if you have more specific questions that we can help with.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone. Take care and stay safe.
Thanks, Jen.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.